Hello everybody, welcome to the Daily Sip. My name is Oliver. My mission is to bring you closer to organic Japanese green tea, and today we gonna start the session. Today we gonna dive into the series of the mega sampler. So what you can see, this here is our mega sampler. So we are talking here about 26 different teas, which you can see in here. And this is actually a sampler which you can order online on our web shop. And today we're just gonna start the series with one of the teas, and the one here I picked out is the Gyokuro Kukicha. So you can see here, this is a tea coming from Shibushi, which is the south of the island, or the main island, and the island of Kyushu. So close to Kagoshima, the biggest city in the south. So this is the tea we're gonna dive into. So let's start and get on with it. Good, so I'm gonna put this aside, and then we're gonna hop in directly into the tasting of this tea. So first what we'll do in this series is just talk a little bit about the farmer. Who is he? What brought him also to organic tea farming, and then really explain the tea a little bit, and going into the taste experience also of the tea, and then really discover what the speciality of this tea is. So first, let's go into who the farmer is. When we talk about Mr. Sakamoto, we at Nio are actually quite big fans of him. He's nowadays the president of the Organic Association in the south of Japan for the region of Kagoshima, which includes also Yakushima Island, for example. And he started actually his journey of organic green tea in 1985. Since then, he's actually selling green tea. He started the transformation 7 years earlier, so they needed actually, they told us that they needed 7 years to transform his plantation from a non-organic to organic and to reach the similar quality. So quite a long process. And this, for example, this is Mr. Sakamoto. Here we visited him on his field. Also his brother was present, and he really showed us around the farm. And since then it has become a quite custom for us that we go to visit him and to really see his farm and how he is doing, because he also believes that organic is actually the way to go. He did this in 1985. We started only in 2017, but we both have actually a little bit the same viewpoint on that. The organic soil is absolutely amazing, and it is a way to enrich the tea plant with a special nutrients, and that the tea is richer, but not only richer in taste, but also richer actually in its state. So he decided, after several cancer cases actually in his family, to start organic tea farming, and that's why finally he ended up in having now 4 acres, which produces around 4,000 kilograms of green tea. So it's quite a small farm, still in kind of the scale of Japanese green tea or in tea in general. So it's quite a small family farm in the south of Japan. And he does this now since 35 years now, so it's a long time with his brother. So they do this now since 35 years, and now slowly the younger generation comes and slightly takes over, but he's still the boss. He's still the master, together with his farm and with his skill, together with his brother. The brother more looking after a little bit the fields. He's more a little bit the engineer and really looking after the fields. And when it comes to production and also to promoting the tea, Mr. Sakamoto does this on his side. So they're a big, perfect complement, both of them. So both with the same mission, and very, very beautiful people. So let's go into this tea. So we have here a Gyokuro Kukicha. A Gyokuro Kukicha is actually a long shaded stem tea. What does it mean? So when we are looking into Japanese green tea, often it is said that getting the tea as sweet as possible, as umami rich as possible. This then finally helps the tea to really get this savory, smooth taste, which is so typical for the Japanese green tea. And the Gyokuro is kind of the highest class of green tea in Japan. It's also said that it used to be the tea of the emperor. That's why some people refer it as the emperor's tea, or emperor's grade, you could also say. The reason why the emperors, or why it has actually this surname, is that the emperor, when they started to drink tea, they always waited for several months until they started to drink tea. This was due to the fact that often lower quality tea turned after a certain amount of time, so they most often waited until September or even October to drink their first tea. And Gyokuro, due to its high quality, its long shading process and its richness in minerals, is actually a tea which preserved quite well, and that's why it is also referred as the emperor's tea. Gyokuro is the longest shaded leaf tea together with matcha. Matcha and Gyokuro is a very similar process in the end, only that matcha then is destemmed, deveined and then made into powder. Meanwhile, the Gyokuro is really just dried, rolled into a nice needle shape. And the Gyokuro Kukicha is actually a stem tea, so a mix of stems and leaves deriving from the Gyokuro. So let's have a look at this. So I have here a 5-gram sample pack. You just open it up. Here I brought my scissors. And I'm gonna open this, and now let's have a look how this tea looks. So I'm just gonna pour it in here. So you can see directly this is a mix of stems and leaves. 5 grams in this pack. And on the one hand, you have here beautiful leaves of the Gyokuro, but you as well have stems. Maybe here a smaller example of a stem, so you can see it's a little bit brighter, it's nearly a little bit straw-like. So this is actually how the Gyokuro Kukicha looks like. I would say it's around 50% stems and 50% leaves. Mr. Sakamoto is also a Karigane. This is also a part of the mega sampler, and there you have a little bit higher amount of leaves and a little bit lower amount of stems. And what is actually a stem tea, or what is the speciality of stem tea? So when you're looking at the tea leaf or the tea plant, all of the minerals and also the theanine, so the amino acids, they pass through the veins, through the stems to the leaf. So the leaves, the stems are actually quite rich in minerals. But the good thing is they do not contain caffeine, because caffeine is a protector of the tea leaf plants, the tea leaves especially, because the bugs, they always want to eat it, and it gives a little bit of a bitterish taste to the tea leaf for the bugs, and that's why it protects itself with caffeine. But this is not, or the stems are actually not containing this. So what Kukicha finally is, it is a low caffeinated green tea. And this is why I often drink this also in the evening. So it's an amazing tea to just enjoy it in the evening time, because it's quite low in caffeine. People say it's around 30 to 35 milligrams, even going down to 25 milligrams as we are talking here. But the Gyokuro, where the leaves contain a little bit higher amounts of caffeine, it is a tea which is on the higher side of stem teas, but still pretty low, around 1/3 of a normal coffee, maybe even 1/4. It depends on the level of caffeine. So very easy to brew as well. Normally when you look at Gyokuro is actually a tea which you have to brew a little bit longer. I have the experience with this tea that you can brew it quite short, so 1 minute to 1.5 minutes at now I have 65 degrees Celsius, which is around 155 Fahrenheit. I'm gonna leave it in for 1 to 1.5 minutes. If you go for Gyokuro, which is without the stems, there absolutely you can go a little bit higher, a little bit longer, for around 2 minutes. So this is a little bit the difference now here. But this tea you definitely can leave it in also for longer, but not longer than 2 minutes. So I added in around 6 ounces, 5 to 6 ounces. That's how I like to drink it. You can also use a little bit less water. If you're using less water, then the tea just gets stronger in terms of taste. It gets more complex. So this is definitely also something you can go for. But I usually take 5 to 6 ounces of water, which is around, I would say 130 to 150 milliliters of water. So now 1 minute is through, so I can take this tea. So let's just have a look at the tea. So for example here, what you can see is that this tea here actually has a nice kind of a golden color. So the stem's bringing in a little bit more of a golden color. Otherwise, Gyokuro is a little bit more jade green, a little bit more beautiful when it's green with its green color. Here we have the stems definitely taking also a little bit of space and giving then the tea a little bit more of this a little bit haze color. But let's go into the tasting. What you have when you're taking a stem tea, if it's from a sencha or if it's from a Gyokuro, you always have a little bit this minerally, you always have a little bit a slight wooden, but a very light kind of fresh wood. It's like when you, well, as a kid, when I broke off, for example, from a small tree, a small branch, and I took it in my mouth, it's a little bit that taste. So it's not this kind of a heavy wooden taste, but it's very light and nearly sweet woodenish taste, a little bit more minerally. So this is something you can actually, or you actually see when you're diving into the stem teas, that they have a little bit this slight taste of mineralization, but then the shaded leaves which are in this Gyokuro Kukicha then give a very smooth and very nice flavor to it. Sweetness coming. I get a little bit of kind of a watermelon or honey melon. It goes a little bit in this direction. I get a little of pear. I get a little bit of nearly apple, but a sweeter apple, like the golden apple. So it's a very sweet and round tea mixed with a slight kind of a fresh wooden note. So it's quite an interesting tea, and as I said, a great tea for the evening. It's also an alkalizing tea thanks to the fact that it contains a lot of minerals thanks to the stems. So it is actually a pretty nice tea to have in the evening time. I often drink it exactly in the evening hours when I come home from a long working day. Then I often sit down, have a kukicha or a bancha, and one of my go-tos is definitely the Kukicha of Mr. Sakamoto, thanks to it's a little bit smoother and it's really a kind of a fruity, slight fruity notes mixed with these hay notes. But let's go to the second brewing. I'm gonna just leave this here. Maybe I can just compare this in the end. And what is important when you go for the second brewing, in the second brewing you actually can just leave it in for 20 seconds. That's more than enough, because in the first brewing you have opening of the leaves. Second brewing, the leaves are already open, so they give directly the taste. So let's have a look. Good. So when we already see now, we'll compare the first and the second brewing. Now we can see it really properly. Here we have much more the stems, which give much more color. In the second brewing, it seems to be that the leaves are giving a little bit more of color to the liquor. So I'm expecting that the taste of the stems is going a little bit down, maybe leaving a little bit more space also to the leaves. So it might be that the second brewing is even a little bit sweeter. I'll put this aside here. Good. And it really is the case. So in the first brewing you have quite a strong, this kind of wooden note is quite present. So this fresh wooden note, a little bit minerally note. Here we have a little bit of sweet corn. It's moving a little bit in the direction of sweet corn and giving more space for the sweetness of the tea. It moves a little bit into a florally space, so I don't have this typical kind of honey melon taste. It's not so present anymore. It's more a little bit a shift into kind of a sweet, nearly a little bit of mango. It has a little bit of a more floral note. So it's quite interesting. This tea, I also drank it yesterday when I came back after work, and it was really present for me when I did live on Instagram, that actually the second brewing of this tea really gives a slight floral note to it, which is quite interesting. Normally you get this only from oolong. Here I really have it. It's something I absolutely tasted with this tea. Good. And let's go then to number 3. Also here, only 20 seconds, as we have now the leaves actually open. So we can just drop it in, wait for some seconds, and then directly pour the water. Good. Et voila. So we see it stays a little bit in the direction of the second brewing. So second and third brewing definitely not as different than the first brewing. So let's have a sip. It gets a little bit lighter now, the tea. So it definitely has a lightness, kind of a more of a lightness to it. So the stronger brewings are the first two. Then in the third one, it gets lighter. But what's nice is that now the stems seem to be disappearing more and more. So it's really the first and the second where I still get the stems or this kind of minerally a little bit wooden taste. First, very strong or very present. Second, not so strong. And the third, now I'm really in a smooth, sweet tea area, which is quite nice. So here I must say this is a tea which has a little bit of a lighter tones, but it gives more space. To a little bit brighter notes. I got a slight sweet corn note. There's a nice sweetness with it. A little bit, I would say it's kind of a smooth sweetness, not too strong, so kind of a slight mango taste. So quite interesting when you go from the first to the third brewing. So very, very different tea experiences here, clearly with the fresh wood mixed with the sweetness of the leaves. Here much more fruity, a little bit less in this kind of wooden note, and the third one is really soft and smooth and sweet, but also in taste a little bit lighter. I might do a fourth one with this, but with 3 I think this is definitely the brewings you can do with this tea, and then the tea will just get lighter, a little bit softer also in its taste profile, and then slowly drifting off into more of a watery consistency. But here, definitely the first 3 brewings, definitely worth it. So this was the tasting number 1. Here, the Gyokuro Kukicha from Mr. Sakamoto. This is the tea which I tasted today. So thanks a lot for watching, and I guess I see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.